So we've heard from the four managers involved in the 2 o'clock kick-offs. Dundee United against Mirren, Motherwell against Kilmarnock, just about getting up and running. We'll get back to Celtic Park shortly. We'll still to hear from Brendan Rodgers. We'll confirm. I'll run through the team news again, I'm sure, at some stage as we build up to that one. But we will keep our eye, of course, on these two matches. Stephen Craigan, first of all, at Fir Park. Motherwell against Kilmarnock, getting up and running in the next few minutes, Stephen?
Yeah, both teams are right, Richard. There's a decent crowd here on a Sunday afternoon. It's hard to see the away support. Strangely, once again, they're in the top tier off the stand off to our right, the Tommy McLean stand. I always think it's better if they're behind the goal. They create a better atmosphere. For one reason or another, they're up above, but they look as if they've brought a good travelling support. It's an expensive time to be a Kilmarnock fan. Some have been to Bruges, some have been to Norway, and some will be heading off to Copenhagen, so they'll have plenty of money to burn over the summer having to go and watch their team. But they'll be looking for a big game this afternoon, looking for a victory, get themselves into the next round. I said earlier on, pushing towards Hampden Park. Derek McKenna spoke very openly of what he would like from Kilmarnock and what he sees in this squad. He thinks you're good enough to lift the cup, but it's okay saying the words of the players have to go and believe that and trust that. So he'll be wanting a big performance from his team this afternoon. Mother will have to find something a little bit different. I think they've been uninspiring in the last couple of weeks, to say the least. A lot of the supporters are a little bit miffed at the shape of the team and the formation and how they've set up. So Stuart Kettlewell probably is limited a little bit due to the injuries he has. But the two new signings that have come in this week, yes, they're not starting, but they may add just a little bit of variety as this game goes on and as the season progresses. So it'll be an evenly matched side. I think it'll be competitive. And with it being a cup game, clearly it has to finish today. So I think that just adds a further excitement to this game.
Half-time in the two SWPL 1 matches that kicked off at 1 o'clock. Hearts 2-0 up against Spartans. Andrews and Ademola Kun on the score sheet there, and Hibernian 2-0 up against Aberdeen. Bowie and Papadopoulos getting the first half goals for Hibernian women. Rangers against Partick Thistle getting underway round about now. You can watch that live in the BBC Sports Scotland website. 4 o'clock, Motherwell against Montrose. 4:10 Celtic against Glasgow City, the first of the big ties, big head-to-heads over the course of the season. Rangers, of course, also involved in what is likely to be the battle at the top, although there will, of course, be the challenge from below those. But those are the three clubs that have dominated in recent years, or in Glasgow City's case, pretty much forever. 4:10 live on BBC Alapa. We will update you on those, but of course we are keeping you across the 2 o'clock kickoffs. Stephen Craigan is at Fir Park, Motherwell against Kilmarnock. We've got Rory Loy and Stephen Thompson in the studio there. We've got Martin Dowden up at Tannadice as well. So the action just getting up and running there. Just in terms of that game, Rory, if it hasn't started, it'll be just about to. Do you see this one as being just as tight as has been suggested?
The Dundee United St Mirren game?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think that had St Mirren not travelled to Norway on Thursday in tough conditions on the pitch, heavy pitch, and I probably would have made them slight favourites. Dundee United being at home and St Mirren having to travel again, I think it will make for a closer game. Played with Kevin Holt, predominantly a left back, a left centre back, so I'll be interested to see how he gets on in defensive midfield. It's not a position I would have imagined him in, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on there. But yeah, I think it'll be nip and tuck, and it's a tough one to call, that's for sure. Right,
so I must admit I wasn't altogether sure how they were lining up. So Adeboyega has gone into the back three, and then Holt in midfield.
Yeah, Holt's in defensive midfield. Jim Goodwin alluded to it in his interview, and Sibbald just alongside him as well.
Right. And then you've got Babunski, you've got Trapanovsky, who have both made really caught the eye in the early stages of their Dundee United careers.
Yeah, they have. They look like they dovetail each other well. Trapanovsky's gets around the pitch well, he's mobile, and he can score a goal. First time I've properly seen Dundee United from start to finish today. So, St Mirren went close though. So I'll be interested to see how they get on today and what they look like. It's Jakoviti again, my goodness, he likes a
guy's a goal machine,
isn't he?
It was interesting there, just a long throw. Jim talked about it in his pre-match interview, and obviously since Sean Rooney's joined the club, it's a weapon that St Mirren are going to utilise a lot this season. And it was a long throw, flicked on, it fell to Jakoviti, get a really good shot away, and it was well saved, corner to St Mirren. So Yeah, a bright start from St Mirren in the game. It doesn't look like it's the best crowd I've seen at Tannadice, to be honest with you. The main stand, or the opposite stand, is quite sparsely filled. But St Mirren's definitely started the brighter.
Well, actually, let's go to Martin, because he's up there. Is this not a tie that has set the pulses racing then for the two sets of fans, Martin?
Yeah, I was going to throw that in. Actually, I was at Hampden obviously yesterday, where there was a similar thing for probably very different reasons, I would imagine. But a fairly disappointing crowd, I have to say. The main stand almost entirely empty, and as you look around, it's fairly sparse. I'm quite surprised, to be honest, with that. And yeah, the guys there picking up on that chance for Jakubite was a good chance. It was a very good save, actually, and St Mirren really starting on the front foot here.
Right, I'm trying to jump back and forth between these two games. I'm going to say on the iPad with the stream here. I'll just keep an eye on that. It's interesting. You'd have thought United and St Mirren, of course, a lot of the fans, I suppose, may have been away in their travels.
It won't
midweek,
be included in the season tickets either, Richard.
No, it won't be. No, absolutely.
So that's possibly why. Just cost of living and things. It's not easy for folk to get out to every single game, maybe. And
you think, Richard, it's St Mirren and Aberdeen last Sunday as well.
Yeah,
you know, which would have been a long travel up. And it's not making excuses, but there's no doubt football's expensive. I think we were talking last week, Kilmarnock against St Johnstone. The St Johnstone fans, it was £34 a ticket, I think they were talking about.
Wow.
You know, which is an awful lot for supporters. You want to take your wife and your two kids, you're talking, by the time you get fuel and something, you're talking the guts of £120, £130, which is an awful lot. So you can understand maybe some supporters have been selective in what games they go to.
Games on TV as well, which never helps, does it? If you can watch it at home or in the pub, then you might take that option.
But I just say, Richard, David Watson is playing. I thought he would have been playing as an attacking midfield player. It looks like he's playing as a right wing back or a right back in a back four, which is where
back four. Yeah, all right. So Finlay at left back.
Sometimes they look as if they're playing a back five, and then other times they look as if they're playing a back four. Guy Mackay-Stephen and Fraser Murray are in the wide areas, but at times David Watson's behind Guy Mackay-Stephen. It looks like he's playing as a full back in a four, and other times it looks like he's playing as a wing back in a five. So. But it's just an unusual position, because you think of David Watson, he gets Young Player of the Year from being that attacking midfield role. You know, when the ball goes over his head as a midfield player, he gambles. He just runs beyond the opposition midfield players. He gets in touch with centre forward. He gets beyond. He's got himself some goals. So a little bit of a different role, although Derek has deployed Brad Lyons as an auxiliary right back at times throughout the season. He did in the latter stages of the game the other night. He ended up playing as a right back. So a little bit of flexibility for David Watson. He's having to show, he just goes in for a lovely slide tackle there, but he's going to have to show his qualities, not just in his attacking midfield player, but also as a defender today. And have the fans turned out in numbers at Fir Park? Yeah, it's decent. I mean, Motherwell's home crowd, I mean, they won't get many more than 4,500 for, for most league games. So I'd imagine there's probably 3,500, maybe just slightly over that, home fans. And I imagine there's maybe 1,000 away fans in the top tier of the away stand. So it's a decent enough atmosphere. Like most of these games are so tight and so compact that the first goal sometimes can just open the game up and release a little bit of the pressure in the valve, and people have to get after the game a little bit. But Motherwell probably have started slightly better. They have a little bit more territorial advantage without really having it. Stephen O'Donnell scrappy there in the box, but nothing really of note towards the goal. But I think Motherwell have probably settled best, but sometimes can happen because Derek McInnes has made 9 changes to a team. It takes players a while to get into a rhythm if you've not been playing regularly, so I'm sure they'll settle as the game goes. Early stages of both these ties: Motherwell 0, Kilmarnock 0, Dundee United 0, St Mirren 0. 3 o'clock live commentary from Celtic Park, where Hibernian are the visitors. We heard earlier from the Hibernian boss David Gray. Scott Allen, as part of the commentary team, gave us his thoughts. We're also, of course, joined by Pat Bonner. We've got the team news from Liam just a little bit earlier. Just that one change, and I know that Ademida is waiting in the wings now. Pat, but you've spoken an awful lot. Well, certainly through part of last season and the early part of this, what on earth are Celtic going to do if there's an injury to Kyogo? Well, right now it's Dyson Maeda who's the centre forward.
Yeah, and Kyogo's not on the bench either. No. And he went down last week, and he went down with I don't know whether it was an arm injury or a shoulder or whatever, and there's a few rumours going around that he is struggling still with that shoulder injury. And if that's the case, and listen, we don't know why he's out. He could be resting him, but he's not even on the bench at the start of this season. And if that happens,
Big chance there for Dundee United, the home side, putting a bit of pressure on Ellery Balcom. He parried when he really should have done a lot better. The ball eventually came out to Craig Sibbald, and he curled one, just cracked off the bar and away. Good chance there for United.
Yeah, it was a really, a really good effort. I know the boys are watching it in the studio there in Glasgow. Craig Sibbald coming very, very close, guys, to breaking the deadlock.
Yeah, Balcom, Martin's right, should do a lot better with the cross. He flaps at it under not a lot of pressure, to be honest, from the forward player. And then Craig Sibbald, I played with Sibs for a number of years, and he's capable of that from that range. He gets a good bit of whip on it, but I don't think it was ever going to dip below the crossbar. Clips the top of the crossbar and goes way up. But Balcom, who started his St Mirren career well, not covering himself in glory there.
I noticed in the midst of all that, the melee, Alex Iacoviti had gone down and was clearly staying down in the hope that the referee might stop the game, and then all of a sudden realised there was a cross about to come in, and suddenly Lazarus-like was back up on his feet.
It's funny how that can happen, isn't it? Yeah,
the kind of thing the referee might just take a note of.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, but I mean, it's been actually quite an even start. Oh, that looked like a foul. It's Gogic's 100th game for the club today, incidentally.
Yeah.
So I took.
He's been a really, really good signing, hasn't he?
He has. He's been really good. I don't think the game on Thursday night was his best game in a St Mirren jersey, but he's an ever-present and probably one of the first names on Stephen Robinson's team sheet. He's such a warrior. I mean, he took another head knock in that game on Thursday, but he just he just gets up and gets on with it no matter what. Always available to play, probably playing a lot of games throughout a season, kind of 70-80% fit, but never shirks it, and he has been an excellent signing for St Mirren. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
We'll let you know as soon as anything occurs in either of the matches. In fact, let's go to Stephen. Anything much happening at Fir Park, Stephen?
No, it hasn't. I'd said that Motherwell probably had settled best, but Kilmarnock have come back into it a little bit. Guy Mackay-Stephen has had a strong start. Marley Watkins just with the shot on that right-hand side, just drags it past the right-hand post off Oxborough and goal. But yeah, Guy Mackay-Stephen, it's been a while since I've watched him play, and he had a little burst of pace about 5 minutes ago up against Ewan Wilson. Just knocked the ball past him, just brought on the afterburners, fed a lovely little ball into Rory McKenzie. Ball was put into the near post, and just where you think you would have someone like Kyle Vassell there being physical against Liam Gordon, it was actually Bruce Anderson who was there, and Liam Gordon managed to get in front of him. So I did say that was a little area that I was interested to watch, to see how Marley Watkins and Bruce Anderson would cope with the physicality of, in particular, Dan Casey and Liam Gordon. So that was just one little example of probably missing Watkins, but with bigger games on the horizon for Kilmarnock, then Derek clearly has to make the changes. But Zach Robinson playing as a lone striker, that's been the frustration for Motherwell fans this season, that at times they've just been playing with one centre forward. There's a real feeling that Davor Zdravkovsky, Andy Halliday and Lennon Miller, quite similar in players there's not a lot of pace amongst them. You talk about creativity. Len Miller's a smashing footballer. He likes to get in the ball kind of a little bit deeper and spread passes and put it about. So they don't have those penetrating runs from midfield that they had, particularly from likes of a Harry Payton or from Blair Spittle last season. So Stuart Kettlewell still trying to get the mix right in his midfield, but it's 0-0 with almost 14 minutes gone.
Another good chance for St Mirren there. Richard, ball came in, well worked on the right hand side. The ball came in from Mandron, and he just strained his neck, got a header on it and sent it off towards the top corner, and Jack Walton just got a fingertip to it, send it over. Still 0-0 here.
Yeah, it was a really good move that. It started from the goalkeeper and they played it into midfield, out wide, and got all the way up the pitch, progressed up nicely, and good tip over the bar in the end. So I think as much as Dundee United have hit the crossbar, St Mirren look the better side so far.
Actually, we hit Jim Goodwin, excuse me, talking about United, Stephen Robinson talking about young Fraser Taylor. Tomo, you were a player you were well aware of. He caught the eye there. That was a very nice cross in.
Yeah, it comes from the same village as me. It's nice to see him getting the opportunity.
Just give him some credit, Tom. Stop talking about yourself. Just allow the young man to go and flourish.
No, it was good. He obviously set up the goal midweek with a cross in from a corner for Jakaviti for the European goal, and deserves this start in the team. He's had to be patient in terms of waiting for an opportunity to start a game for St Mirren, so it's nice to see him play. He's a very talented young man, so yeah, it was his ball in there. He's very good with his left foot, and it was a fantastic cross. I don't think there was much more Mandron could have done with it. The ball was kind of behind him, maybe he's having to kind of strain himself to even get contact with it. So
you see play Henderson's header yesterday, Tomo?
No,
it was exactly like that.
Was it?
To guide it into the far corner. It was an unbelievable header. You should watch it.
Maybe I will.
So we've two centre forwards in the studio and you're talking about head in the ball. Does anything stand out for you guys? Have any goals you scored with your head? There must be one. There must be one that stands out and think, oh, that was a bit special.
Headers.
You must have a few, Tomo.
I've scored a lot of headers.
So
yes.
Rory was the silky type of
thanks for that, Richard. That's very kind of you.
Tomo was just a big battering ram who scored many a powering header.
It's because you were talking about Alex Jakaviti where they were staying down and looking at the ref and trying to start VAR. I'm thinking, if Tomo was playing, that would be him. He'd be rolling about and looking and getting stopped and playing. He'd be getting centre half sent off and booked and all sorts. All he was like.
No, I was never one for staying down. Let's be honest.
I scored a header on the first day of the season when I signed for Dundee in my debut. We beat Kilmarnock 4-0 away from home. We were like Brazil that day, and
settled down.
We were very good. Finished 8th that season. Don't get me wrong, but it was a great start. And Gary Harkins got to the touchline and flicked one over the goalkeeper. And you see me at the back post, brave as a lion with my turtleneck, scared to go in for it. But I seen the goals and thought, you know what, I need to go for it. So managed to head it over the line, Craigs, with my nose.
Nice.
Wow.
Tomo, you must have won.
I scored a header from like 19 yards out at Tynecastle once for St Mirren. I don't really know how it happened. I think the keeper had come off his line, and I think I'd seen it and just done a big kind of loopy long header, so that was probably the longest one I've scored anyway. But yeah, I scored a lot of headers in my career. Clearly that was what I like to do, get the ball in the box and I'll go and fight people like Craigs, try and win it.
Yeah, there's plenty of fights, don't worry about that.
Yeah. Right, we'll keep an eye on these games. Still goalless. Dundee United, St Mirren, Motherwell, Kilmarnock. We're just chatting with Scott Allen, with Pat Bonner about the game at Celtic Park. Celtic against Hibs are live. Commentary match to come. Interesting, Pat, that so he's made the one change today, and it sounds as if it was enforced, where Maeda starts instead of Kyogo. That apart, that's the only change that Brendan Rodgers has made this season in the 3 matches.
Yeah, and I was surprised actually that he didn't play the goalkeeper since Sinisalo.
He is playing a goalkeeper.
Yeah, but the young man that they brought in from Finland, and listen, Scott Bain is the other one. What a good position to be third choice at Celtic, eh? Where's he going to play, Scott Bain? When's he going to get a game now? That's going to be the question. But my word, but I think probably he wants Kasper Schmeichel just to blend into the team, to get a bit of focus on and get a relationship built up with his defenders and that over the next period. And maybe that's why he hasn't made a change. But I would have liked to have seen the other young goalkeeper just to see, has he got the qualities, the confidence that he will be the future Celtic goalkeeper in the next couple of years. It's lovely to see a young man come in and do something. But anyway, that didn't happen today, and I don't think it'll happen throughout the game. But he will make changes. I think he's still trying trying to get his players up to match fitness. That's the key, and he wants to get that whole group that he has. It's almost like without Kyogo, it would, or Adamida, that would be your go-to team, I think, to start this season, and then get them ready for Europe too. So he wants to start with them and then maybe make the changes as we go on. He could have changed it around today, but then this is an important competition for them, because last year they didn't win it, and then the pressure comes on then a little bit when you don't win that, or at least get to the final of that competition. I think is always important, so I think he wants to get a good run in this competition also.
Does it also suggest that as far as he's concerned, right now with the squad he's got, that's his best starting 11, so he's just going to stick with it?
Yeah, I think he's going to stick for
as best he can.
Best he can until he's forced into changes. But as I say, the squad's hugely important now. A really good squad and a strong bench. If you can take players off the bench, they can make the difference in that last half hour, 15 minutes of a game. That is hugely important. And he will have to get the other players up to speed also in games. I don't know what they do. Do they play bounce games or whatever? For the players who don't play, I don't think many players want to go down and play in the other competition, so they have to play some sort of games, but they will train at an intensity. I know that here at Celtic Park, they always have done that, and they will do it, but that still doesn't beat playing in games. So, but as long as he can make the changes, and he's in a position to be able to make the changes, and that means then having their noses in front at a critical time in the game.
Scott, it is quite unusual in the current game, isn't it, to see a manager make so few alterations to his starting lineup?
Yeah, but I think you can see the rewards in terms of the Celtic performance, even looking back at pre-season. Celtic have got going out all the teams in the SPFL as quick as anybody. The football they're playing, they look really settled as a group, so sometimes managers don't want to change that. And I think looking at Hibs today, and obviously the David Gray, we spoke about the team news earlier, I think he's going to go with a 3-5-2 when they do have the ball, and when they're off the ball, that'll obviously drop back to a 5. I think that he's going to play Martin Boyle up alongside Kuhrejevic, because last week when Hibs did turn over the ball, they just couldn't get out. So Martin Boyle does give them that option that they can put the ball into the space and he can maybe go on the end of it.
They will have to do something because they were poor last week, Richard, on Sunday, and they were very, very poor defensively also. But they couldn't get on the ball. Young Dylan Levitt was brought into the middle of the pitch to get on the ball and try to make passes. He didn't do that. That's probably why he missed out today, and he's not in the team. And but they needed. It was only in the second half they started making a few passes, and that then they could exploit the pace of Martin Boyle in behind and so on. But in the first half they were completely outplayed, and they couldn't get a hold of the ball. And defensively they were very, very poor also, and give away those 2 early goals.
How difficult is it? I mean, David Gray was talking about the problems there can be in terms of facing a team 2 weeks in the bounce, especially when you've been well beaten, as they pretty well were last week. From a player's point of view, Scott, does it change your psyche, your mentality at all when you have been so roundly defeated the week before?
Yeah, it does change your mentality. I think Hibs went out to obviously get after Celtic with the home support behind them last week. That isn't going to be the case this week. The players will probably be looking at it saying stay in the game as long as possible, frustrate Celtic, and maybe with guys like Martin Boyle's pace, catch him on the counter-attack. That's what they will be looking at. But from a player's point of view, they would not have enjoyed last week. They got the runaround off this Celtic team. So he has changed the shape. Looks like he's changed some of the personnel, and Martin Boyle, instead of running back to his own goal, will be hoping to run heading towards the Celtic goal this week.
3 o'clock kick-off, full live commentary to come. We've heard from David Gray, still to hear from Brendan Rodgers, which I'm sure we will do in good time. Let's just get updates from the 2 matches that kicked off at 2. We're approaching midway through the first half of those encounters. We'll start at Tannadice. Dundee United against Mirren. Martin Dowden.
Yeah, still 0-0 here. The closest we've come is that Craig Sibbald shot that came off the bar, and it is fairly evenly matched, I have to say. Both showing a bit of threat, both going for it a little bit, but it's that word evenly matched, or those words evenly matched. 2 yellow cards of note. One was Alex Gogic right on the touchline, completely wiped out the debutant Lucas Stevenson. That was some introduction to Scottish football. Yellow for him. And then Declan Gallagher also in the book, where he wiped out Toyosi Olusanya. He was was a little bit lucky because Olasanya was breaking, he was going beyond him, and he was last man, but he was going at an angle towards the corner, so I think the yellow probably sufficed. Had it been a little different, he might have been a bit more trouble. But yeah, still 0-0 here, fairly competitive.
Martin, thank you. Stephen Craigan, meantime, is at Fir Park. It's Motherwell against Kilmarnock there.
Yeah, it's probably Motherwell's best chance just before you came to me, Richard. Stephen O'Donnell with a lovely tantalising cross from this right-hand side in front of the main stand. It eluded everybody, and Zach Robinson was trying to get himself in at the back post. I think if he'd maybe gambled a little bit earlier, he may have gotten the end of it. Whether he was reactive or whether he was trying to stay onside, it's hard to see from my position, but it looked as if he could have maybe made a move and got on the end of it. So that's probably been the best passage so far. There's not been an awful lot between the teams, I have to say. The game probably needs someone to grab it by the scruff of the neck and start dictating the play. You know, they're trying to make passes, but nobody's really penetrating, nobody's really hurting the opposition. And you know, for Motherwell in particular, they look as if it's hard work to try and create a chance. The back three have plenty of the ball, goes into Zdravkovsky and Holiday, and they take the ball, but they're not really hurting Kilmarnock in any way. The square balls, it's negative balls. You're thinking, can you lift your head? Can you get into the centre forward? Can you get runners off them? So it's a little bit pedestrian as it is at the minute, but much to the same as what it is in Tannadice. There's nothing between the teams and no one's made the breakthrough.
So goalless in the two ties. Remember, the draw for the quarterfinals will take place later following the conclusion of that game at Celtic Park. Already in the hat, Aberdeen, Dundee, Rangers, and then the two sides that caused the upsets yesterday. Falkirk with that excellent win against Heart of Midlothian, and even more noteworthy, the Spartans from League Two, 1-0 success against Ross County. We chatted earlier in the programme with Blair Henderson, the man who well, he's just been a goal machine for all his clubs, but certainly for Spartans in recent years, and got his 5th of the season. A brilliant header to give Spartans that memorable victory. We also spoke to John McGlynn, the Falkirk boss, following his side's really impressive beating of Hearts. So Falkirk and the Spartans also in the draw. We'll find out over the course of this afternoon which 3 other sides of the 6 in action will be joining those 5 in the draw, and we'll have the quarter-final draw later on. So live commentary to come from Celtic against Hibernian in the midst of all the chat, the build-up, the interviews we've been bringing you. We were just looking back on the action in Europe midweek, which I'll come to in just a moment. Martin.
Sorry to interrupt, but what a it was a throw-in from Ross Graham, just around about level with the penalty spot. It was his second attempt at it. It went right into the box. St Mirren let it bounce, and the ball bounced right up. The keeper was nowhere, and it hit the bar. And Dundee United have got a corner. That was absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, just watching it. I mean, it is amazing, and I've never quite understood, Tomo, why a long throw causes more mayhem than a corner does.
I don't really know myself. I mean, I used to flick them on. The clubs I was playing at, I would be the target in the box to try and flick it on. But it's a great weapon to have. I mean, I spoke about Sean Rooney at St Mirren with the long throw, and obviously Dundee United utilising it as well. It does cause panic. It's all about the first contact. If you can get that first flick on or header into the box, it usually causes absolute mayhem.
Richard, it's ironic we're talking about long throws in Motherwell. They're playing Kilmarnock here this afternoon, because I think maybe back in 2004, 5, 5, 6, we were needing a point on match day 33 to get into the top 6 at Motherwell. We were losing 1-0 at home against Kilmarnock, and I took a throw in the far side, and it bounced, very similar to what Martin's describing, and it bounced, and it was actually getting into the net. But if the goalkeeper Alan Combe had left it, it wouldn't have counted. But he went for it and only got his fingertips onto it and put it into the net, and we drew 1-1. We made top 6.
You got a long throw in you, Craigs? I had you down as a long throw guy.
So I assume that had to go down as an Alan Combe own goal. It
did. Yeah. I mean, I claimed it still, but it was a goal, because if it had been straight into the net, very similar to the one up at Tannadice, it wouldn't have counted if someone doesn't touch it.
I mean, there was just that moment there, but Rory, you guys would have been watching it there as well, where the keeper suddenly reacts, and there is that instant. I mean, in your mind, you know that it can't possibly be a goal because it can't go straight in from the throw, but he didn't quite have that split second of panic, didn't he?
It's strange that the ball travels such a long way. I mean, as a defender, if you're watching the ball, you don't want it to bounce before your first contact. Regardless, you want to either head it or control it or get rid of it if it's in the box. So the fact that, nobody reacted, but then on top of that, the offensive team didn't react either, it just led to the ball bouncing in the box and at the back post. I think it was maybe Rooney who put it out for a corner in the end. So panic stations at the back, but you have to say really poor defending, but also poor attacking, given that they didn't take advantage of the situation.
Right, as I said earlier, we were chatting about Europe. The one team we didn't get to, Rangers, and of course huge disappointment, Tomo, as they dropped out of the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big talking point from the game was the second yellow card, which I think everybody's seen and everybody agrees that it was a really poor decision, and probably something that needs to be looked at in terms of VAR not being able to intervene when there's something like that happened, a second yellow. I mean, it was ridiculous. So did Rangers do enough to win over the two ties? I don't know, but it'd been interesting to see what happened. Should they have kept the kind of 11 men on the pitch? I felt as though they didn't really create much. They had spells in the game where they looked, decent enough, but they didn't really create, and I think that's going to be an issue looking at the team. Where are the goals coming from apart from a kind of Dessers, if you like? Just now, they're not really cutting teams open. For me, I think that's going to be an issue for them this season. You can't just rely on a Tavernier over the years or a Dessers. The goals have to come from elsewhere on the pitch. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this Rangers team is good enough to play Champions League football. So they're now obviously in the Europa League, and we'll see how they do there. I mean, over the last 3-4 seasons, they've done reasonably well at that level. So I think the big thing is obviously the financial position of the club. Should they have won the game and given themselves an opportunity to get the riches of the Champions League, if you like, it would be massive for the club. And Philippe Clement spoke about it after the game. It affects what his powers to be able to bring players to the club, which is clearly required in different areas of the pitch. They're now not going to be able to do that, or need to kind of fish in a different pond for the quality of player that he's looking to bring in. There's no doubt the squad needs something at this minute in time. They're not that impressive. Even yesterday I felt as though large spells they struggled to impress, but I suppose the key thing is that they won the game yesterday and they're into the quarter final. But it's not great times for Rangers in terms of the quality on the pitch, I would say that.
Richard, I think that'll be a recurring theme throughout the season with Rangers as it goes on. The fact that people say they've won, but they need to do this, they need to do that. Because you look at the squad they had, or the 11 or 14, 15 players used towards the end of last season, everyone thought that needed improved. They needed to get rid of some players, they needed to bring in better. I think they're worse off just now than what they were at the end of last season. When you look at the players they've lost, and you're not just talking about the players you've lost, it's the experience, the leadership within the dressing room. I know it wasn't successful, but there was a lot of loud voices and big personalities who left in the summer. And you're looking around and thinking, who's the ones that are going to step up and dig the team out? Tavernier looks a little bit lost at times because maybe Golson's away and Lundstrom's away and Barisic, guys he's shared a dressing room with for many years, like Sir Ryan Jack as well. That's a lot of experience and football knowledge to lose from a dressing room and then try and rebuild and go against the Celtic team, who look as if they've got better from last season. So there's a lot of question marks around it, but I generally feel we'll talk a lot this season about Rangers' performances. If they win, it'll be they won but it wasn't great, or they're missing a little bit of that, or they need a little bit of something else. That'll be something for me that will continually crop up, because this group of players have a lot of improving to do to get even close to Celtic this season.
One thing I didn't enjoy, I have to say, and I understand why it was a good distraction away from the result, but it was almost pushed by Philippe Clement and the club, this idea that it was inevitable that if Hefty stayed on the pitch that Rangers would have qualified, and that was far from the case. Rangers could quite have easily have lost that game with 11 men. Yes, it was a terrible decision, and you've got to go on with that, and it'll happen for and against Rangers at different times this season in different competitions, and that's the way it'll be. So there was no guarantees Rangers would have went through that tie had they kept 11 men on the pitch. Kiev looked just as dangerous as Rangers, to be honest, and ultimately they lacked the quality. They had chances in the game and they lacked the quality, and Tom was right, they don't have the quality to compete in the Champions League this season. And another thing I would say is, a lot of excuses and reasons after the game, blaming referees, etc. Well, this goes back further than this season. If you wanted the Champions League money, if you don't want to have to complain about not getting it, then hold your nerve against Motherwell, hold your nerve against Ross County and Dundee with a few games left in the season and go and win the league and get in automatically, and that solves the problem straight away. So a bit of a blame culture in my opinion after the two-legged tie, because Rangers ultimately didn't do enough. Yes, a bad decision went against them, but that doesn't guarantee, had that not happened, that Rangers would have went through anyway, Richard.
No, it's over a month until the Europa League phase kicks off, and of course that takes us beyond the end of the transfer window. No way of knowing what kind of movements out there might be. I think the point has been made that there would have to be departures before Philippe Clement can add significantly to his squads. Is this going to be a key 10 or 12 days for Rangers?
Yeah, but I mean, it just depends, what monies there are there for them to invest in the squad, whether it's going to need to be loans or, as you're pushing towards the end of the transfer window, if there's not money there to go and bring players in. I mean, obviously Lawrence Shankland's been spoken about an awful lot, and there's no doubt Rangers need to add another striker to the mix. For me, I think they need a number 10. Cantwell and Hadji clearly not in the manager's plans. They need somebody in there that's going to be able to create, score goals and create goals as well. Probably could do with another winger. So there's business that they need to do, but is the money there, and can they?
It's the Cantwell situation, Tomo. See, it baffles me, right? Because Clement came out and said, oh, is that a goal?
Right. It is a goal. It's Dundee United, and it looks like Ross Graham. It was a corner in from the far side, right in on top of the goalkeeper, Ellery Balcom. I have to say, he didn't really get there again. And Ross Graham, I think it is, it just got a nick on it from right about 2 yards. Dundee United 1, St Mirren 0.
Yeah, well, I'm just about to see it. I don't know if your feed
behind
is...
the pictures are behind, so we're waiting with bated breath. Here it comes.
Yeah, it's Will Ferry who swings in the corner, and it is Ross Graham, isn't it, who gets his head on it at the near post. So Dundee United have taken the lead. Martin, is that a deserved advantage at this stage?
I think in the last maybe 5 minutes or so, Dundee United have just started to build a bit of pressure. They've been forcing corners and throw-ins from the position I described earlier from Ross Graham. So yeah, maybe they'll feel they should be ahead, but St Mirren far from out of it. They will need to create a little bit more though.
Keeper again, boys. Are you a little bit dubious about him and how forceful he was in going for that ball at the near post?
Yeah, he probably should do slightly better. I think the defender covering the near post has got to be braver as well, though. It's his area to defend, and regardless of whether you're marking man-to-man or zonal, there's always a player in that position, and I think he's got to be braver there. I don't think he helps his goalkeeper. If I was a goalkeeper, I would be expecting him to deal with that, but I do agree on the follow-up that Balcom maybe commits when he shouldn't, but the player on the front post area has got to do far better for me, Richard.
The other thing I would add, Richard, is Jim Goodwin did refer to that sort of physicality at set pieces. I think he was referencing the idea that St Mirren, when they were attacking, but obviously it's paid dividends at the other end as well. They got right on top of the goalkeeper there, and while he might have done a little bit better, he was under severe pressure.
Can I just touch back on the Todd Cantwell thing, Richard? Because one thing that baffled me was, when Clement came out and spoke about Todd Cantwell, he said that Cantwell was honest with him and he's told him he wants a new challenge. I cannot for the life of me wrap my head around that. He's come up here, I think he's won one trophy. Celtic have dominated. He's been nowhere to be seen in Old Firm games. Callum McGregor gets the better of him every single time. So you're running away from a challenge. So what kind of challenge is it you would like? And then on the top of that, if Clement wants to keep him, put him on the transfer list or however it goes, but he's got to be professional, Cantwell. He's still got to be available for selection to say, do you know what, I do want to leave. And I know it's difficult for a manager to pick somebody who's saying that, but Todd Cantwell's got a contract. He's contractually obliged to give his all to Rangers Football Club at this moment in time. He's got to go out there and he could earn a move with performances. He's just rotting away in the reserves, earning a wage, and he'll be in no rush to move if the right opportunity doesn't come up, because he's on a healthy wage packet, I'm sure. So Philippe Clement's hands are tied. He's not picking him. He's not getting any offers in for him, and he's got a player sitting there who's capable of making his team better. That's saying that he wants to go away for a new challenge when he's completely failed at his current challenge. The whole situation is baffling.
He's taking the easy option, Rory.
Yeah.
You know, the tougher option is to say, do you know what, I'm going to stay here at this club and I'm going to fight, I'm going to show what I'm all about. Yes, I've come up with a made noise, I've been on social media and people know me for that. I'm going to show what I'm like as a footballer. I'm going to grab the game. I'm going to show Rangers fans what I can do and how good a player I am. I think it's easy to say, do you know what, this is too big for me. I don't like this. I want to go somewhere else, and where, you know, it's a bigger league and there's not as much focus on me, and I can just slip away and I can have a good game now and again, I've got a bad game, and I can drift through my career.
If he had said that to the manager, Craigs, I don't know how you could say that without being embarrassed and say that to his face, that he wants a new challenge. I really cannot wrap my head around that.
Well, I think that makes the manager's mind up. It's time to go then if someone tells you that.
Yep.
You would also have to query where this big challenge is going to come from. The top half clubs in the English Premier League are not exactly going to be queuing up to sign Todd Cantwell, are they?
You wouldn't have thought so. No. It's just another example of things that aren't going well for Rangers at this minute in time. It's been a very difficult period, you would suggest, on and off the pitch, and this is just another kind of thing that isn't been dealt with particularly well. I think if Philippe Clement, your kind of hands are tied a wee bit in terms of if he's saying I don't want to be here, I don't want to play.
But you've got much more chance of moving him on if you come to an agreement that, right, okay, I'm happy for you to go, but you need to be professional. Give everything.
If you're a manager, are you picking somebody that said I don't want to be here?
If you've got a better chance of selling him in Rangers' position, if you've got the luxury of being able to keep him in the reserves and his wage doesn't matter, then fine. Rangers need to sell him. If he plays the next 5 games and he's our best player, they might have people sniffing around. But at this moment in time, if you've got no bidders and he's not playing any football, I don't see where the movement comes from.
Yeah.
Well, look, that's just one of a number of things that Rangers have to get sorted out. That Europa League campaign due to start. The first match is towards the end of September, goes right the way through until the end of January. The new 8-game set up in the Europa League groups. Let's see what's happening with Stephen Craigan in Lanarkshire.
Yeah, I would love to tell you it's free-flowing football with lots of chances, Richard, but it's not. And it's not that it's been a poor game. It's just I think both sides are lacking a little bit of cutting edge at the top end of the pitch. There's been decent play in midfield from both teams. The centre-halves are getting plenty of time in the ball. They're being patient. But it's just that final thing you do with the ball, that little bit of quality that both sides are lacking at this moment in time. We know Kilmarnock have plenty of strength in the depth. We know Motherwell have got Tony Watt and Maswanise, who may make an introduction. Stuart Kettlewell was bigging him up in his pre-match talk. So that may have to come into the manager's thinking the longer the game goes. But in the first half, it's just been two teams knocking their heads against each other and struggling to come up with a moment of brilliance.
Good chance for United there to get a second as well. Watt came down to Will Ferry. He pulled it back. In came the debutant Lucas Stevenson. Didn't quite connect as he'd probably have wanted, and Ellery Balcom makes the save. But United just starting to turn the screw. 1-0 to them.
I've got to say, Will Ferry has really caught my eye in the early part of the season. Tom, he's a player that...
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same, yeah. I think he's looked really, really decent. We're just getting a replay of this chance now. Yeah, he's kind of... should do better, actually. Hits it kind of into the ground, and Balcom with a comfortable save. But United, really putting a bit of pressure on. They've got another corner and virtually exactly the same set up as the last one. 3 big players going to that front post area. You'd imagine the ball will come in, and it has done right into that area, but someone have managed to clear it. I've been impressed with Ferry, no doubt about that. Another good signing by Jim.
Yeah, he's certainly caught the eyes, made an impact, and Dundee United's, remember, with the advantage. Ross Graham, 34th minute, the header at the near post from Ferry's corner, and it's United who hold the advantage as we move into the final 5 minutes of the first half at Tannadice. Still goalless, as we just heard from Stephen Craigan, between Motherwell and Kilmarnock. Celtic Hibernian, 3 o'clock, we'll have full live commentary from that one. In terms of SWPL 1, the staggered kickoffs, of course, week 1, match day 1, just a barrel load of goals last week. There have been quite a few already this afternoon as well. Hearts heading to victory 3-0 up against Spartans late on. Andrews, Ademolekun and Wade all on target there. Rangers women, that kicked off at 2 o'clock. They're 3-0 up, picking up from their big victory last week. So 3-0 up against Partick Thistle. They beat Aberdeen 11-0 last week, of course. And Aberdeen are currently 6-0 down to Hibernian women in that encounter. So a horrible start to the season for the Aberdeen women. Motherwell against Montrose kicks off at 4 o'clock, and it's Celtic against Glasgow City at 4:10. That one live in BBC Alapa, the Rangers Partick Thistle one currently being streamed live on the BBC Sport Scotland website, and you can see all the highlights from the action from this afternoon on the BBC Scotland channel. That'll be on Monday night at 7 o'clock. So Monday night, 7 o'clock, with the action from the SWPL. Also in the week ahead, remember, the Scottish Football Daily podcast is published Monday to Friday. You can get that wherever you pick up your podcasts. And Sports Sound will be on Thursday, earlier kick-off time, to bring you the Europa League and Europa Conference League action. Victoria Pilsen against Hearts, Copenhagen against Kilmarnock. Both those matches kicking off at 6 o'clock. So make sure you join the guys then, who will, let's hope, will bring you news of 2 more successful outcomes for Scottish football in European competition. We're waiting for live commentary of what will be, by that stage, the last of the second round ties to kick off. Celtic against Hibernian. We brought you the team news earlier. We had also from David Gray. We'll hear from Brendan Rodgers before kick-off time as well. But we're moving into the closing stages of the 2 o'clock kickoffs. The only goal so far scored by Ross Graham of Dundee United to give them the advantage over St Mirren. You had your fears. I know they made 5 changes, Stephen Thompson, but you had your fears about St Mirren potentially being a bit lacking in energy, appetite off the back of their European encounter.
Yeah, more, not appetite, just more kind of energy, the legs. But there's not been a lot in the game, really, to be honest with you. St Mirren have had opportunities. Dundee United probably the better opportunities. But yeah, I mean, it's not been a brilliant game to watch. Maybe quite like the Motherwell game with Crags. Yeah, I'm slightly concerned. You know, St Mirren need to just make sure that they're a good team, a good squad, and they're missing some key players. Obviously, Mark O'Hara been out injured as well. They just need to make sure that kind of they don't let, if they lose today and going out of Europe, kind of derail them in any way. You know what I mean? Because obviously they had the really positive game against Hibernian at home, the positive game against Valur at home, and everything was looking really rosy and brilliant. You know, they then the European match, if they were to lose today, and then I think they've got Celtic. If they get Celtic next weekend, I think they might have.
Yeah, I think it's next Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah, so you know, you just need to be careful that the kind of positivity doesn't kind of drift away. But they've still got a long way to go in this game. Second half, obviously, coming up. I'd imagine that Stephen Robinson will look very much to his bench and try and freshen things up as the game goes on. But they're still in the game at 1-0, obviously. But as I said, you know, there has been so much positivity, and rightly so. You would just not want to see that kind of dwindle away with a couple of results, bad results, and then obviously Celtic next weekend is going to be difficult. So they obviously want to try and get through this and just keep that kind of good feeling around the club.
Yeah, just from United's point of view, Rory, it's kind of shaping up right now to be a very decent kick-off to the campaign, isn't it? They lost their first League Cup tie against Falkirk, but they came through the group with 3 successive wins thereafter, a couple of draws to kick off the league campaign, and of course denied a win only deep into stoppage time last week against Ross County.
Yeah, that'll be the biggest frustration, I think, for Jim Goodwin, to get 4 points off the back of starting with a derby and away to Ross County. I think would have been a great start, but I always think with Jim Goodwin, he never seems to do things the easy way, Jim Goodwin, as a manager. But the signings look shrewd. You know, attacking wise, they look good, and you know, they've conceded 3 goals in the league, but you know, got 2 points. It's a positive enough start. I just think it's probably right on the edge of, you know, being determined over the next couple of games how good the start is for Dundee United after 2 draws in the league. If they can hold on here, that's big, because it's the quarterfinals of a cup, and if the draw's kind, then they'll fancy their chances of getting to Hampden. And I always think if you do go through difficult spells in the season, then the fact you've got a semi-final to look forward to always keeps the fans and everybody on side. But I see no reason whatsoever why Dundee United can't consolidate this season like Kilmarnock did in their first season back in the top flight a couple of seasons ago. And you know, Jim Goodwin is good in adversity, and fingers crossed for him that can happen.
That's half time here. Dundee United 1, St Mirren 0.
Yeah, half time at Fir Park as well, Richard. Motherwell 0, Kilmarnock 0.
So just a one goal so far, scored by Ross Graham. It is Dundee United who hold the advantage against St Mirren. Still the deadlock to be broken at Fir Park.
The Scottish League Cup.
Live on Sports Sound from BBC Radio Scotland.
Where Scottish football lives.
This is Sports Sound on BBC Radio Scotland with me, Richard Gordon. Half-time in those two matches. We'll wrap up the first 45 minutes from both encounters. Let's, though, head back to the game at Celtic Park. It's live commentary to come from there. Brendan Rodgers been chatting with Kerdi Nidsen.
Brendan, just looking at your team for today, I know Kyogo Furuhashi, you hinted at it through the week that he may not play. What's the issue with him?
Clearly the shoulder that he got injured last weekend. So yeah, he doesn't feel sort of 100% with it. Normally he's okay to go again. This is a problem that he has had or managed from way back in Japan, not just here. So it's something that we just felt we didn't need to take the risk with it this weekend. He's obviously been fantastic for us all the way through pre-season. Done very, very well. And for this one here, especially now having Adam Ida back, he's not quite there in terms of fitness or where we'd want him to be, but he's certainly going to be an option for us, and we'll be able to bring him into the game, and that allows us then to recover Kyogo.
Absolutely. Is it something that he and you are happy to manage ongoing, or is it something that can be fixed permanently?
Well, it can be if he has an operation, but that will be down to him. He clearly hasn't wanted that for a number of years. And I think it's something that he manages really well. It's just that we don't need to take any risks that we don't have to.
The good news for you is that you've got another Japan international who I think plays in that position for his national team in Maeda. Will he slot into that position today?
Well, you'll see. You'll see at the beginning of the game. I think that, like you say, I think actually one of the front three players have all played in that sort of striker's position, but he's one that can play in it, and we have a nice front line now of speed and talent and technique. So it's an easy transition to put the player into that position, and then Adam Ida will come into the game.
Yes, I imagine, or you actually outlined how happy you are that he's here. What a great option that is for you once again.
Yeah, fantastic. He was tremendous for us in the period when he came in January. We see the talent, and I think what I really like about Adam is that, because sometimes you just never know, you can bring in a really, really, really good player, but it's how they cope with the mentality and the pressures of being at a big club. So to see that and see how he coped with that and see how good he was in dealing with that, that gave me great comfort and looking to push to get him here. So I'm absolutely delighted he's here. He's at prime age for development. He's 23. Still has a lot of work to do. But I feel with him, with his strength, pace, power, goal-scoring ability and mentality, I think he can be a fantastic signing here for us, and another one to add to the squad.
That's the only change, Maeda in for Kyogo. No wonder, because you really seem to have hit your straps pretty quickly so far. Is there anything you're particularly happy with as the manager, from a coaching point of view, as to what your team's given you so far?
Yeah, well, firstly on the change, I don't think we have to. I think we have one game a week. I've already explained this to the players at the beginning. It's natural. We've got no qualifiers, we've got no cup games, so there may well be little change in the starting 11, but obviously there'll be changes within the game that will hopefully increase the intensity of the game. But no, I think from the first step that we made back in pre-season, because that's my compass really. I observe training, I see how well they're working, and that's always tells you the direction that the team is going in. And this team now, after the confidence of last season and working together, they've come back, and pre-season we've been really, really good, and a lot of that has been down to the defensive attitude in our pressing, our running, and really giving everything to the principles that we set. That has set then the tone for the offensive rhythm in the game. So when you have that connection, that combination of the two, then it's a really nice thing to have. So we have that, and we have to fight every single game to maintain that.
And of course, in a cup competition, big stakes here today for you, for the club, for the players too.
Yeah. You want to get into the next round. And we just got to, like I said, stay really focused on that and look to perform how we have been. So that's about working hard with big intensity, big quality when we have the ball, and creating the opportunities. And if we can perform that, and that's the big concentration. Taking away the result, we perform how we want to and how we have been, then everything else, the scoreboard takes care of itself.
Brendan Rodgers with Carradine and outlining there why he has made so few changes. Just the one alteration in the 3 matches so far. We'll be back at Celtic Park shortly. Let's just wrap things up from the first half. From the 2 other ties, we'll start with Stephen Craigan, who's at Fir Park. Motherwell against Kilmarnock, Stephen.
Yeah, it's half-time here, Richard. Motherwell 0, Kilmarnock 0. And I have to say, both goalkeepers have been idle for long spells in this first half. They've had the odd shot from distance. It's been really comfortable for them. Derek McInnes has left out Robin McCrory. He said he had a bit of a groin problem, so Kieran O'Hara's played. Aston Oxborough's the same. So I think that probably tells you about the quality in the final third. It's not been good enough. Both teams have worked to play well. Their build-up play's been decent. But when it comes to that final cross, that final pass, that penetrating run, that touch, that shot, it's just eluded both sides. So I'm sure the longer this game goes on, both managers will look to the substitutes bench where they have good options on it. Actually, Richie Foster, who's on the Motherwell coaching staff, made a point of speaking to Tony Watt and the new signing Maswanise. He actually went to them at half-time and was speaking to them, pointing things out. So I would imagine they will play some part in the second half. And then, of course, Derek McInnes has the likes of Kyle Vassell, Matty Kennedy, Bobby Wales. Plenty of options there for him to try and mix it up, because I think something will be needed different in this second half. Both teams have cancelled each other out, not been a lot in the game. So it is half-time here at Fir Park. Motherwell 0, Kilmarnock 0.
So the one goal we have had so far this afternoon has come at Tannadice with Martin Dowden.
Yes, half-time Dundee United 1, St Mirren 0. It's Ross Graham that's made the difference here, and a fairly tight, fairly even affair so far. And cup progression would be significant for United as they seek to reassert themselves as a force in Scottish football. The goal came very clever corner kick from Will Ferry, bent it right on top of Ellery Balcom's goal. He didn't get there, Graham did, and nodded home from just a couple of yards. Craig Sibbald had come closest earlier before that with a really good effort that struck the crossbar from outside the box, and they might have added to their lead when debutant Lucas Stevenson ran on to Ferry's cutback. That shot was a little bit tame with the goal gaping, and Balcom managed to scramble that one away. St Mirren, though, did start brightly. Alex Jacobiti connected after a knockdown in the box, but Jack Walton did well to divert that one away. They'll need to conjure a little bit more threat up top to get back in this, but far from settled this one. Dundee United 1, St Mirren 0.
Martin, thank you very much indeed. Should anything happen at Tannadice during the course of the second half, and I'm sure something will happen, we'll hear about it from Martin, and Stephen, of course, will update us too on Motherwell against Kilmarnock. And a huge thanks to Rory Loy and Stephen Thompson, who have been well, not quite by my side, but been on air with me for the past 3 hours, helping us through as we look back and all the action from yesterday, what's been happening in football generally, and of course building up to all this afternoon's action, which will continue with full live commentary from Celtic Park. We've heard from both managers. David Gray joined us some time back. It's Scott Allen and Pat Bonner who are both there. Got to say, Pat, Brendan Rodgers, and why wouldn't he, sounds very much at ease with his lot right now.
Yeah, he does. And listen, they've had a wonderful start to the season. Everything's going well, but it's only early, let's face it. I think that sort of description he gave of the injury to Kyogo might be in his head for a wee while. I know they've managed it, and he's obviously come away with the line that's been on him. That injury's been apparent since he was in Japan as a young man before he signed. So and they've managed it quite well. But you can imagine if he has to go to the operating table and get that fixed, and it happens to him in a big game, and he's down to one striker. That will be the one thing he's quite happy, I think, to have Maeda. And let's see how he does up front today. Mikey Johnson came on sub last week. He's obviously not available today, but he got injured, but he played through the middle. So he's got some sort of kind of options there, but not what you need probably get into Europe. So that's the only thing that'll be probably affecting him at the moment. I think the other message has been a little bit that Matt O'Reilly, maybe the interest from Atlanta has gone from Matt O'Reilly at the moment. And if that's the case and he stays at the club, I think Brendan will be very, very happy from that perspective, because he is a critical player for them also.
Players to be emerging very soon. Scott Allen, I suppose 2 ways to look at it. Can Celtic maintain the kind of form they've shown in the very early part of their season, and can Hibernian find a way to try to halt them in it that they simply couldn't do, particularly in the first half last week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the opening minutes of the game pan out, especially for Hibs, considering how things went last week. But it's such a hard task, especially against the Celtic midfield, the way they move the ball, so fluent with it. And when you are a player and you're up against that, you don't see the ball for long times, it can become very, very difficult. And that defensive structure you've got in place just doesn't seem to work at the same pace, the same aggression. So it's going to be a tough ask for Hibernian today.
In the SWPL 1, Rangers 3-0 up against Partick Thistle at half-time. Full-time score lines: Hearts 5, Spartans 0, Hibernian 7, Aberdeen 0. In the Premier Sports Cup, and remember the draw for the quarter-finals to come at the conclusion of this match, half-time score lines: Motherwell 0, Kilmarnock 0, Dundee United 1, St Mirren 0. Here on Sport.